Hey, how you doing? This is Brian Shanley. As most of you know, in the summer of 2021, my name was prominently in the conversation, at least in the underground third-party exciting people, about the forthcoming at that time 2022 Minnesota State gubernatorial election. That is the election to elect a governor. It was a year away, and I had a lieutenant governor / running mate that believed in a lot of possible changes. And I had a small but very dedicated group of volunteers who were excited about the future and the possibilities if I was to get into a position in which I was able to write policy for the advancement and development and furtherance and betterment of the state of Minnesota and her beloved and precious people who live here. And I was in deep and meaningful and fruitful conversations with two different political parties. They were third parties, but they had ballot access, which means you would have had to have taken me seriously. And so there was a lot of positive momentum, and then all of a sudden, I get this opportunity in late 2021 to move to Wisconsin for business reasons, for job reasons, and I had no choice. And I moved here, thus geographically and residentially, I no longer qualified to be the governor of Minnesota, and I took myself out of that conversation. And it was interesting because my motto at that time, as you remember, was vote for me, I won't lock you in your house. Vote for me, I won't let Minneapolis burn to the ground. These are fairly common sense agenda items, and they were resonating with people. The 4-year-long tyrannical, bloodthirsty reign of Tim Walz was disgusting, and it made Minneapolis look like a jackass on an international stage. Whether he was letting the police choke people to death, thinking they would never get a consequence, or whether he was letting peaceful protests become overrun with out-of-state paid anarchists, Marxists, whether they're Clinton Foundation funded, Soros Foundation funded, or some other funded. They came from other states and burned the place to the ground. He had more than one time to accept National Guard help. He had more than one chance to... He even said he enjoyed the smell of the burning out of his window. That or his wife. When I heard his wife said that, that was the first time I knew he was married to a woman. I never knew he was married to a woman until that moment. But then, during the COVID, if you remember, he had a phone number, a snitch line, like in the Soviet Union, where you recruited people to become narcs for the state against their neighbor. You can call an emergency line if you see someone not wearing a mask, or if you see someone out past the curfew. The fact that he felt he had the right to do these things. Stay in your house. I'm going to close down your businesses. You don't get to go to work. You don't get to go to church. You don't get to go to funerals. You don't get to go to weddings. You don't get to visit your sick loved ones in the hospital. You know, I don't know what's worse, the fact that he did it, the fact that he felt he had the right to do it, or the fact that the people of Minnesota just bowed down and listened uncritically. But whether it's cities burning to the ground or COVID overreach, the people gave him a second term for God knows what reason. And in that second term, not only was he handing out tampons in the boys' bathroom, like that's sexually appropriate, but it's not, but he doesn't care. He became the vice presidential possible nominee for the Democratic Party. And people all over the world got to hear him on a larger scale. Used to be he was our problem in Minnesota. Then it became, wow, the whole world's hearing him, and he's a real jackass and an embarrassment. And when he's an embarrassment and he's our representative, then we look like idiots. And so now I hear he has the nerve to offer his services for a third term. I can't believe it. Somewhere in the Democratic Party, someone must come forward and say, hey, you've had long enough. I've got my own ideas. Democratic Party, please nominate me, or I'm going to disrupt and make it hell in a third-party ticket. I'd like to see that, or a Republican, if Minnesota people will stop voting based on... This guy belongs to the party that the television has instructed me is the better people. Therefore, I'm going to be obedient and just vote for him without thinking. Once that dies down, that trend goes away, then maybe you'll be open to even a different party. But until then, Walz might get a third term. Can you imagine? Can you imagine what he would do? Can you imagine how more unlivable and uninhabitable Minnesota could become under this fool? And so, hypothetically, in a fake universe, if I was to run in 2026, I'm not saying I am, but if I was, one of the first things that I would look at is there's a Minnesota criminal statute on the books, State Statute 609.43, which is misconduct of a public officer or employee. As in other words, you're not entitled to commit crimes against property or against people under the disguise of, I'm just doing my government job. You don't get to do that, whether you're committing a robbery, a theft, a beating, a rape, whatever it is. But I have a badge on, so it's okay. No, you don't get to. I would be bringing that back, and I would be prosecuting many government officials who have been abusing their positions. In particular, whoever was giving out money to the fake not-for-profits and stuff like that, and the vast welfare fraud that's taken place in the Somali America community that you're seeing about on the television right now. That's been uncovered. I would be whoever did that. But in particular, there is a lawyer named Mary Moriarty. She is a Hennepin County prosecutor, and she is a state attorney. And she likes either not prosecuting anything, or letting people out on bail, or letting people out after being held and charged with nothing. Or let's say they killed someone. We'll prosecute you for an assault, and you won't do any time. Person took a human life. So her softness on crime, combined with the radical reduction of headcount in Minneapolis, has left Minneapolis to be a war zone. All right? And so I would be... The good news is she's not running for another term coming up. And so if the taxpayers, voters, and citizens are smart enough to look beyond, hey, I see the letter after this person's name, and they belong to the party that the TV told me to vote for, if you can look past that and make sure you're voting for a person that believes, hey, when there's serious violent crime in my neighborhood, the people who have been injured deserve justice. There has to be a prosecution of this. If somebody's talking like, you can't arrest or prosecute your way out of a crime situation, you have to fix this person committed crimes because they didn't learn how to play the violin or whatever. Any of the secular human garbage, that's their philosophy, don't listen to it. Vote for the person who says, yes, I'll put your ass in jail. If you commit a crime in Minneapolis, I'll make you pay. Vote for that guy or that lady, whoever that turns out to be. But in terms of the people who created this wide open gangster environment, under Minnesota State Statute 609.43, misconduct of a public officer or employee, I would be bringing up some criminal charges. And on day one, I would be signing from the executive position of the state of Minnesota. I would be signing orders that would really be warrants for their arrest. And I would put a new prosecutor in there who would make an example out of them. The lawlessness in Minnesota would come to an end, especially Minneapolis in particular. And we would stop being a laughingstock, and Minnesota will become a decent place to live once again. All right, thank you. Bye.